Have you ever had that feeling? The one where your gut screams that something is terribly, terribly wrong, even when your eyes can't quite figure out why. It's a primal instinct, a warning system built into our DNA, and for one man in Abilene, Texas, that instinct may have saved his life. Our story begins on a cold November night in 1998. Journalist Brian Bethel was doing something mundane, something we've all done, sitting in his car, paying bills. He was parked outside the local library, the parking lot nearly empty under the dim glow of the streetlights. The only sounds were the hum of his engine and the scratch of his pen. It was quiet, peaceful, and then he saw them. Two young boys, maybe 12 or 13 years old, were walking across the pavement. They had on hooded sweatshirts, hands stuffed in their pockets against the chill. Brian felt a brief flicker of concern. It was late for kids to be out by themselves. But he didn't think much of it until they changed direction, making a beeline straight for his car. A soft tap on his driver's side window broke the silence. Brian, a naturally helpful person, started to roll the window down just a crack, ready to ask if they were lost or needed help. But as he did, he got a better look at them. And that's when the first wave of unease hit him. There was something profoundly off about them. Their movements were stiff, unnatural. Their skin had a pale, waxy quality, almost like a mannequin's, a sickly gray in the faint light, and their faces were completely blank, devoid of any emotion. The taller of the two spoke, his voice as flat and empty as his expression. "Mister, we need a ride home." Brian began to politely explain that he couldn't just let strangers into his car, especially two kids he didn't know. It was the sensible, responsible thing to say, but the boy interrupted him, his monotone voice cutting through the night air. "We can't get in without your permission. Please let us in. We need to use your phone." The phrase, "We can't get in without your permission," hung in the air. It was a strange, almost formal way of speaking. And that's when Brian's eyes locked onto theirs. Or rather, where their eyes should have been. They were solid, glossy black. Completely black from lid to lid. There were no whites, no irises, no pupils. Just two pairs of bottomless, soulless, inky voids staring back at him. In that instant, a tidal wave of pure, primal terror crashed over him. This wasn't just strange. This wasn't just off. This was fundamentally wrong. These weren't children. These weren't human. The feeling was so intense, so visceral, it was like a physical blow. The boy's polite request started to curdle, becoming more insistent, almost a command. "You have to let us in. Just open the door. It will only take a minute." Every instinct in Brian's body was now screaming at full volume. This was a predator. The seemingly innocent request for help was a mask, a lure to get him to drop his guard. The politeness was a lie. He stammered out a weak, "I'm sorry, I can't help you," his hand fumbling for the gear stick. The boys' blank expressions didn't shift, but their tone grew colder, laced with an unspoken anger. The facade was cracking. Brian slammed the car into drive and stomped on the gas, tires screeching as he sped away from the two figures. As he fled, he dared a glance into his rearview mirror. What he saw would be seared into his memory forever. The two boys hadn't moved. They were still standing exactly where he had left them, in the middle of the empty parking lot. They weren't chasing him, they weren't shouting. They were just watching him leave, their black, empty eyes fixed on his retreating car. Shaken to his absolute core, Brian eventually did what many of us would do in the early days of the internet. He shared his story online, trying to make sense of the terrifying encounter. He expected disbelief, perhaps ridicule. What he got was something far more chilling. He discovered he wasn't alone. His post opened the floodgates. Dozens, then hundreds of other people came forward with their own stories, stories that were eerily, impossibly similar. They all described encounters with what they started calling the Black-Eyed Kids, or BEKs for short. The details varied slightly, but the core elements were always the same. It always happens in an isolated place, a quiet residential street, a deserted parking lot, or a lonely country road. And it often happens at night. The encounter always begins with a knock. A knock on your car window, or more terrifyingly, a knock on your front door. When you answer, you find children or teenagers, usually in pairs, looking lost or in need of help. They ask for something simple. A ride, to use the phone, or just to come inside for a glass of water. But there's always that same chilling detail. Their eyes. Solid, impenetrable black. And there's always that same unsettling feeling of overwhelming fear and dread that washes over the person they were talking to. The most disturbing common thread, however, is their insistence on being invited in. They can't seem to cross the threshold of a car or a home without explicit permission. You have to let us in. You must invite us over. This detail has led many to compare them to classic folklore creatures, like vampires, who famously cannot enter a home uninvited. So who or what are the black-eyed kids? The theories are as numerous as the stories themselves. Some believe they are ghosts, the lost souls of children. Others speculate they are some kind of alien-human hybrid, attempting to study or integrate with us. Still, others think they might be interdimensional beings, slipping through cracks in our reality. One popular theory suggests they are a form of demon or other malevolent entity, feeding on human fear. Their childlike appearance is a disguise, a form of camouflage designed to prey on our natural instinct to help a child in distress. By asking for permission to enter, they are tricking people into willingly dropping their defenses and inviting evil into their safe space. What happens if you do let them in? Frankly, no one really knows. The stories that populate the internet are almost exclusively from those who, like Brian Bethel, listened to their gut instinct and refused. They slammed the door, drove away, and lived to tell the tale. The fate of those who might have opened the door remains a terrifying mystery. The legend of the black-eyed kids taps into a deep, primal fear. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of the uncanny valley, and the fear of a predator disguised as something innocent. It's a modern folktale for a disconnected world, a story whispered across forums and late-night video essays instead of around a campfire. It serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters don't have claws or fangs. They look like children. They speak politely. And they are always asking for an invitation. So the next time you hear a late-night knock on your door, maybe you should check through the peephole first. What do you think? Have you ever heard a story about the black-eyed kids, or experienced something you just can't explain? Let me know down in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into the unsettling, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more strange stories. Stay safe out there.